All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beat the Cold podcast, where we fight cold like religious thinking and practices. My name is Nikki. And today I am very lucky to be joined by Jimmy Snow. Hi, Jimmy.
Oh, the luck is all mine, I assure you. Hi, how are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, like I said, I'm very lucky, but I've been watching your content for quite some time. You are a major player in the atheist space, especially online. So thanks for, carving out some time for me.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm happy to. I'm glad people ask. I'm glad you asked. People assume I'm going to say no. I rarely do I ever say no. It's usually just like the other day, someone invited me to not a podcast, a live show that was at the same time as our live show is every week, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. What even if I could find a different producer, because it's just one of the ones I'm producing. Even if I had a different producer for that night, it'd be really weird to show up at a competing time live. That's odd. But
That's funny.
otherwise, people usually just don't ask. They think I won't say
No.
yes. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy someone asked.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, just kind of along those lines, jump into telling us about yourself and how you got into the atheist space and how long you've been in the atheist space. Have you always been an atheist? Just,
Yeah.
I guess we'll start there.
Yeah, so I'm Jimmy Snow. I'm the executive producer and often host of a channel called The Line. We do right now 5 shows a week. Though some weeks it's not a full 5. Some weeks it's like there are some shows that pretty much always happen, and then there's some shows that are a little up in the air. And then anytime I'm sick, we have to skip out too, which happens from time to time. But we're getting more producers. Anyway, that's the channel I'm the most proud of. We basically do call-in shows. Where we talk to on some shows it's about theism and atheism, so we'll talk to theists who are calling to challenge us. We'll talk to atheists who have questions. We do general science and skepticism shows. That's more of our Monday shows focus, Skep Talk. Many people will know Matt Dillahunty. He has his own show on Wednesdays. And then we have this Thursday show called the Transatlantic Call-In Show, which is 2 trans hosts. It's usually some combination of Katie Montgomery, student Dr. Ben, and Arden Hart. It's usually some combination of them or one of them with a host, with a guest, I mean. And they take calls from, it can be people who have questions because they just don't know about trans issues and trans lives. It can be they will take on and indulge and argue with transphobes if that's who wants to call in.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I
they're the
hope
best.
you don't get a lot of those.
Oh, every week we get at least a couple. But that's what makes the best calls, because it's sort of like the whole idea of The Line is to engage in conversations with people whose ignorance runs so deep that they don't even actually have a place. Now, like, don't get me wrong. If somebody just came on and started like spouting slurs on any of the show, of course that
sure.
person's going to get shut down. But if
Right.
a person comes with some level of like, I've been hearing this and here's the stuff I've absorbed, and according to my propaganda, you're wrong. We have well-equipped people there to debunk. And I'd apply that to all of the shows, but it seems to be most satisfying to me anyway on Transatlantic when you get somebody who calls in and they're like, oh, I think this about trans people and this should be illegal. And the hosts are, not to say that they won't get themselves sort of charged up, but the hosts are ready to take on those calls and shut down what needs to be shut down, refute what needs to be refuted, and try and sort of bring to a lot of these people the experience of actually talking to a trans person, because that's one of the things that's noticeable amongst so many transphobes. When you ask, like, so how many trans people have you actually discussed this with? How many do you know? It's usually 0. And I think that's important. I think that my approach is in general, and philosophy in general, is there has to be a place. I'm not saying every space must engage the bigots and must engage the bad people or bad ideas, but there has to be some spaces that are doing it. There has to be somewhere presenting the alternative instead of just saying like, oh my God, you have that belief, we're shutting you down, you're canceled, shut up, die, whatever.
Right.
None of
Yeah.
that's not our approach. And then I have another channel called Jimmy Snow where I show people how to make ergonomic furniture for ferrets. So that's that channel.
Time out. Are you being facetious? You mean actual
Yeah.
ergonomic furniture for
No,
ferrets?
I don't know. I feel weird. The line feels like the thing I want to promote more, even though the Jimmy Snow channel was like my bread and butter for years,
Of course, but I was caught
and I
up
still
on the
put there.
furniture for ferrets.
I just make up jobs I do. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I
I was
I
wondering if you literally meant you make ergonomic furniture for ferrets.
I wouldn't even know how what makes furniture ergonomic for a ferret. One time I went to a Chamber of Commerce event. But I was there. It was when I was back in Colorado and I was about to move to Texas. So I'm like, I don't need to network with any of these people. None of these people know who I am. And it's like, it's one of those events where there's usually like some sort of food spread out and then a bunch of people who represent different businesses come and they just like swap business cards and try and network and meet people and see how you can stir up some business together. And
Right.
so I went with a friend and was going to help promote his business, but he was doing amazing and didn't need any extra help. So I just started making up what I do for a living and introducing myself to people and telling them, oh, I've already ran out of business cards. There were like 6 people who wanted to know where the formula is basically like, here's an absurd product and for an absurd clientele. And so I just walk up to people. I'm like, oh yeah, my name is Xavier. And I make vegan macarons for horses. It would be that sort of thing. It'd be like, and I just change it every time. And be like, I'm sorry, I met some ranchers earlier and they took all of my cards. They were like, oh my God, we need these. But if you ever know anybody, just go to veganmacaronsforhorses.com. Anyway,
That is so funny.
that's the source of that joke. We've talked about nothing important so far.
No, it's
And that's
hilarious.
my fault.
No, it's the ergonomic furniture for ferrets. That was funny. I feel like that
Thank
was
you.
rehearsed, but not rehearsed, and that's the genius of it.
It's just making up stupid stuff on the spot, which is my specialty.
So, okay. So you had the Jimmy Snow channel for quite some time. You've
Yeah.
been in the game for a while.
Originally, it was called Dear Mr. Atheist.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it became just Mr. Atheist. Then it became Jimmy Snow dash Mr. Atheist. And then I
Yes.
dropped the Mr. Atheist while still being Mr. Atheist, but having
You
now
are
a
still
channel
Mr. Atheist. Yes.
called Jimmy Snow. Yeah.
Okay.
If needs be, I can still be Mr. Atheist.
Well, when people say Mr. Atheist, I automatically think of you. Anyway.
I think most people do if they're referring to an actual character that exists. I didn't actually invent the name though. Josh Feuerstein did.
Okay.
Do you remember that guy? He had the hey, what's up, everybody? I'm about to debunk evolution in 3 minutes. Because, the other day I had an atheist come out to me. He said I was an idiot, moronic, and stupid because I believe in God, because I believe in creationism. And then he goes, well, dear Mr. Atheist, let me correct you right now. And he said that in his thing. And so I was like,
oh, this guy.
Yeah, he says, dear Mr. Atheist, let me correct you because evolution is not a science, is how the video begins. And so I was like, man, he says, dear Mr. Atheist. And so this was about 5 years ago now. And he says, Mr. Atheist. And I was like, somebody surely has taken up the mantle of Mr. Atheist. And I went and looked and no one had. And I was like, well, this motherfucker's gonna now. Oh, can I swear on here? Do you guys do you cuss? Okay, cool.
No.
I'll be that guy. And so then I started a series called Dear Mr. Atheist, and it was on Thursdays, where each week we would answer questions that atheists have been how did the tagline go? It was like, welcome back to Dear Mr. Atheist, where every Thursday we answer the questions that atheists have heard over and over and over again. It was something like that. I'm giving myself deja vu by putting on, that's my Dear Mr. Atheist voice.
Lovely.
A lot of it's really funny when I'm like hanging out with people who knew me first as Mr. Atheist, because I mean we've hung out off air. You've seen me like, I sort of, first of all, in real life I don't actually talk above a whisper. This is literally my normal speaking voice. I feel like people are gonna be like, oh, he's putting on a voice now. This is actually how I speak in real life, unless I'm excited. And so like I'll be hanging out with people and they'll be like, hey man, do Mr. Atheist. And then I come up, my back gets tight. And I'm like, listen up, motherfuckers. Jesus ain't coming back. He left for those cigarettes 20,000 years ago now.
20,000 years.
What amount of time matters? Because 20,000 years from now, there'll still be some asshole that's like, hey, any day now, any day.
He's coming back.
Anyway, so
Right
yeah,
in
that's
the clouds. Yeah, like a thief in the night.
that's I enjoy seeing other people who have that too, who Seth Andrews is a little that way, where he's got his like beautiful radio voice, and his voice is always beautiful, but he just talks to you differently when you're off air. It's just, I like that contrast. Anyway, what was the question?
Well, how did you,
I'm a Pisces. Just kidding.
Oh,
fuck astrology. Yeah, March 5th.
Oh, March 13th. That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not because of astrology. It's very stupid.
Which is bullshit, but yeah.
It's a lot of women are into it today. It's horrible.
I see, and I have a mostly on Jimmy Snow. My audience was like 70% female. That's what the demographics say, is that it's 70 to 80% women, and then but obviously it's more exciting than that, but Google only keeps track of the two. Because I definitely have a big trans following and stuff too. But
interesting.
And that's the hard part, is like astrology is a little bit more demographically favored by women.
Yeah.
And every time I just make even so much as a joke about it, I'm just like, how are you here? How are you here at my Atheist Skeptic channel talking about how to see through bullshit, how to see through, and you're sitting here going like, did you just fuck with astrology, or did you just insult my psychic? Yes, I'm like, oh my, I did. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. And you should ask yourself why, because the mechanism that you're impressed by, that you are here to watch, that you're here and you're like, wow, Jimmy utilizes his brain in this way. That's why I like watching him. That mechanism that you're here for is how I realized astrology was bullshit too. Exactly. And now you're like, yeah, but this time he's gone too far. I'm like, fucking God. So
you have an atheist channel that has a mostly female demographic?
That's true. Yeah, I know. It's wild. It's fucking nuts.
That's so interesting. I don't, of course my demographic is mostly male.
Yeah.
But I always thought that was because more men tend to be atheist statistically than women.
Yeah, it's so when I first started, there were a lot of men who were like atheist YouTubers, and some of the bigger ones I got to talk to early on, and they were like, yeah, man, like if you're really handsome, you'll get like up to like 15% women, but otherwise most people like hover around 8. And I think they were telling me to expect to hover around 8, not at the handsome numbers, at the 8 numbers. But then I think it's because I take on things that are more pressing to no longer faithful women often than no longer faithful men. Because like with no longer faithful men, it's usually like deconstructing from learning that you're not literally like God's favorite little soldier, and that shit just bores the fuck out of me. Like I focus on a lot of stuff that technically, like I said, it's things that women usually have a higher interest in, but it is the stuff that fucked me up more too, despite the fact that I am shamefully just such a stereotypical cis male in existence. I assure you I hate how much I love being a man and being masculine and doing masculine
I don't blame
things.
You.
Oh, the worst. Disgusting.
If I could do it myself, I would definitely come out looking.
Yeah.
I would love that.
But for me, like,
not literally, but I would just take everything.
I mostly say it as a joke. I know that I have a large trans audience, and I think that I've made little hints around there. They're like, is Jimmy gonna come out one of these days? And I'm like, y'all, I love having a beard, not beer. I don't enjoy beer, but I like having a beard. I like wood shop. I like riding horses and going fishing and wrangling animals, wrangling and wrestling. Yeah.
You literally wrangle animals? Really?
Not anymore, but I was a cowboy by career for about a year when I lived in Wyoming. Yeah.
Not like
I rode horses and I directed. It was bison. I directed bison to the right place. It was a whole thing. I know. I've lived.
You put on your taxes at the end of the year. I was a cowboy.
Yeah. No, I think the official title was like ranch hand or something like that.
Oh, ranch hand. Okay,
It wasn't
okay,
my
okay.
ranch, but yeah. But anyway, the things that like ruined my life
Cool.
that I became very sort of more obsessed with talking about was shit like purity culture, which usually more disproportionately affects women in
Yeah.
modern and sort of even mainstream Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity. Until you get to very progressive Christianity, it's pretty much everything short of like super progressive Christianity. Even like mildly progressive Christianity can be pretty shitty. The purity culture stuff usually affects women a lot more. But I was that special brand of fundamentalist Christian called a Mormon, where I internalized all of the purity culture stuff and the fact that I had, as a teenager, I pretend it was just then, but as a teenager, a very high libido, like super just sex is on my mind all the time. Almost as a teenager, just obsessed with it. Now I can distract myself for hours at a time, but as a teenager, just all day long, obsessed with sex and sexuality and the fact that I was sexual and I felt like I couldn't resist being sexual. So I internalized so much shame. It made me very depressed, at times suicidal. And I was having these secret relationships that in Mormonism, you're not really, to the church, it's more like you're very much discouraged from dating non-Mormons. In my family, it's a hard no. It's the rule is our family cult within the larger cult, it was a hard no. And so purity culture.
Other people who weren't Mormon.
What's that?
We were dating other people who weren't Mormon.
Yeah. I kept getting in trouble because every now and then they would catch me on a date with a Catholic girl, and if only they knew the things we were doing besides watching PG-13 movies, they would have been horrified. Yeah, you're not allowed in the Mormon church. Well, again, it's sort of a discouraged thing, and then your local family cult has different rules. And in our little family cult, PG-13, you weren't allowed to watch until you were 18.
Oh, well, yeah. We
Yeah,
weren't
yeah.
allowed to watch. My parents would flip out if a commercial came on for a movie that was PG-13. They wouldn't even like to watch that.
It's so funny to like even remember that once upon a time I ever paid attention to what the ratings were. Because I
Right.
seriously don't now. I don't think about a rating for a second, except for like that it's cool that like that movies like Deadpool are like, oh, they're doing an R-rated superhero movie. Dope. But
Right.
other than that, I don't ever think about it. I don't check what the rating is. If anything, sometimes I'll be watching something, I'll be like, they're not cussing enough. It's supposed to be
Right.
PG-13, because I don't believe that
That's
this.
how I notice it too. Like if there's not a lot of blood, but it's
Yeah,
like like The Woman King is a war movie with a lot of
yeah,
killing, but it's PG-13. And I was like, they're not showing a
right.
lot of the killing, so this must be PG-13. Yeah,
Exactly.
which was
Exactly.
unfortunate.
What
I
was
would
the
have loved
question
that
again?
PR. Well, you know what? Actually, I think we were just talking about. Well, we were talking about your channel, how the demographics were predominantly female, and I
Oh
was
yeah,
thinking that's very interesting because my demographics are predominantly male, and I thought that was because most atheists statistically are men, and you were saying that you identified with a lot of the purity issues on the side of religion that a lot of women would most likely
yeah.
have to deal with.
So here's the thing: is it's one of those. It's a double-edged sword in a way. There's a lot of people out there who atheist creators don't have to just pick up cis white men, which is what we associate most of the atheist community with. Cis het white men. Like it's like that's who we see the most of. Now I'm
Yeah.
personally not het, but I still pass, and a lot of people don't. When people are around me, my queerness isn't the first thing they notice. It's my inability to make in-person eye contact is the first thing they notice. But anyway,
Oh.
I'm autistic, and it's very cliche. Anyway, I there are lots of people out there who are ready to listen and talk and engage with what you could call atheist content. They're just not all what you would actually call skeptics or atheists. But a lot of them are disaffected by purity culture, disaffected by the sort of marginalization of Christianity. So I have like a lot of crossover audience with somebody like God is Gray, who's like the uber
She's
progressive
cool.
Christian. She's
Yeah,
amazing.
she's
She's one of
cool.
my,
Yeah.
we're good friends. I love her to absolute pieces.
Oh, I'd love to have her on.
She's like, she's the best. Yeah. As far as like the
Yeah, she's
concept
cool.
of beating the cult too, she definitely beat fundamentalist Christianity. Of
Yeah.
course, at the end of the day, we're always going to have our little like, we do it usually only off air, but we'll have little like back and forths about the logistics and reasonability of her Christian belief. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, the thing is that the reason why I think I didn't want to just be Mr. Atheist is atheism is so fucking boring.
Yeah,
Because
it's very, very one note.
it's one tiny thing, and it's not
Yeah.
even really that much of a thing. Because it's not even an affirmative position for most atheists. You'll get some
No.
atheists out there that are like, no, I'm saying there are no gods. Most atheists are just saying in response to, do you believe in God? No, I'm not saying there's for sure no God, but I hold no belief in a God.
Yeah.
I don't know if gods are possible, but I don't. Now I'm a little bit somewhere in the middle. I'm sitting in the like, I'm strong atheist is the term, strong versus weak atheist. Strong atheist when it comes to like specific gods. The Christian God, I feel comfortable saying we can meet the burden of disproof in that scenario. There's
Right.
so much that's inconsistent with the Bible and now what we're supposed to be represented, that if you just go with like the biblical God as written with, let's say, only the first 1800 years of apologetics, you're fine. The most recent couple hundred years of apologetics is all pedantic nonsense and all non-falsifiable bullshit. And so
Right.
it's literally like, okay, now you're just making a bunch of claims that it'd be impossible to disprove whether this thing exists or not. So you all
Faceless,
are just,
timeless, immaterial
you're just
bullshit.
dishonest assholes at this point. And so,
Right.
but it's, yeah, as far as the biblical Christian God and really any God that has been presented, I'd go so far as to say I believe those gods don't exist. But as far as this larger concept or a deistic God, I have never had it demonstrated to me that even a deistic God or some type of God is even possible. Therefore, I don't even accept that it's possible, but I don't say that it's impossible either. However, I will behave as though it is until its possibility is even demonstrated. But anyway, so this all to say, atheism is boring because it's literally just for a lot of people just saying, I don't know whether or not there's a God out there, but I don't currently believe in any. That's what parts makes the atheist part. There'll be people who are like, that's more agnostic. No, the I don't know is agnostic, but I don't believe is the atheist part.
Right.
And so it's stupid. It's all so there's so many non-skeptical atheists that I'm like, well, I don't respect you more than a fucking Christian. Look at you,
Right.
you fucking asshole. Marching in Charlottesville kind of shit. Jumping
what?
up on Twitter. Well, yeah, there were atheists at Charlottesville. I don't remember which ones there were, but I remember the topic came up when it was around that there was at least one or two that people knew were atheists. But they were also like, they were like secular, but they were part of a pagan tradition, but not one that they actually, because there's a whole branch of paganism that's also super racist. It's like just fucking
wow.
yeah.
That would be like what I would least expect to be racist.
Yeah,
Paganism.
no, don't get, and I think, but that's the thing is like there's a whole branch of racist atheism, and they call themselves race realists. And
the white
Stefan Molyneux's party of assholes.
Molyneux.
Yeah. Who did you say?
No, I was thinking are they basically the white race is the advanced race because they pretty much
right. So
everything.
They're the people who are like, okay, well, here's statistically how this race versus this race does something. And for the record, we're not saying white people are superior because we think Asians are superior to us. And so we think it goes Asians, whites, brown, black. Like that's their order of who's got the best genes. And so they'll defend from a secular perspective, just nonsensical and illogical and totally disregarding so much things about sociology and people's socioeconomic position and what they had access to and all that sort of shit. They ignore all of that and they just make a case for white's better than black. And here's my secular reasoning. So you have a ton of atheists in that section, including someone like Stefan Molyneux, who I believe actually sort of rose to prominence as an atheist thinker before he started saying all of his racist shit with that weird fucking accent he has. It's a weird one. He sounds like he always has peanut butter in his mouth and he's trying to play like an invisible harmonica. He's like, and then I realized that I was better than every other race.
Did he really say that?
No, I just was trying to nail the impression because I feel like it looks like he's holding an invisible harmonica in his mouth when he talks. I don't know.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, that is an interesting topic that I don't usually discuss a lot with others, is because it's so weird being Black and hearing those perspectives, but also feeling that because of the things that we deal with, that we are kind of below, not that we're naturally that way, but we are just, people have kind of oppressed. So it doesn't really make you feel good about yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Sure.
Like the study they did with the young girl, I think it was in the 1980s, and they gave a Black baby or a Black girl 2 baby dolls. One was white, one is Black, and asked her which one was pretty, and she chose the white one.
Yeah.
So it's like that internalized,
right,
I guess, oppression.
Yeah.
So
and you'll even see like lighter versions of it in what you would hope was just a group of skeptics. But because so many, if you leave religion as a cishet white dude, first of all, it was happening sooner and quicker amongst cishet white dudes who were also pretty privileged, because a lot of people don't leave religion because they don't have the option to. It's literally like,
especially African Americans, it's ingrained in our culture. You can't live without it. You're supposed to be Christian.
And because of that, there's this gross higher concentration of those cishet white guys all also realizing around the same time, because they don't want the foot of religion oppressing them, the only real oppression that may have ever existed in their life. They don't want the oppressive boot of religion. They look at anything similar to that as an oppressive force. And so they are often drawn to this type of libertarianism where they're like, oh, I'm really smart and I don't want anyone to mess with what I have, and I'm either content with what I have or I'm on a path and I'm content with my path to where I'm headed. And so I have this very privileged position of libertarianism. And then you see those are the people who always engage whenever we talk about wanting more diversity in the atheist community. Those are the people who pop in and start just like reciting what's that policy that libertarians hate and Republicans hate? The affirmative action. They'll start repeating like affirmative action style, anti-affirmative action style arguments, and it'll be like, we shouldn't be worried about diversity, we should be worried about having the best voices. And it's like, you really think you can't do both? You really think that it's useful to not have diversity and representation and people that people can not only feel like they can empathize with, but also like, hey, these people aren't pushing my people out? Like, you don't see the value in that, or you don't think that we'll ever be able to find diverse people who are also good speakers? What the fuck are your values? What are you talking about? And there's a lot of that. Every time we talk about it, or anytime that somebody, I saw this recently, I'm not going to give any specific examples, but like when it turns out a person of color has done something bad, suddenly you got all of these, and it's 90% cishet white dudes who have become libertarian since leaving religion, who jump in with the things of like, well, this is what happens when you give a person a position to meet a diversity quota instead of, and it's like, literally no one who did that.
Do anything.
Who hired that person for their channel based on, this is a person who did all the work and got their own voice and then started collaborating like anyone else So what is
It's usually that we do
frustrating.
more work. We do more work and to get to where we need to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
My brother is a very successful he's a consultant for one of the largest consulting firms in the country. And in order to get his job, he had to go through several interviews with the higher ups, very intensive, rigorous interviews. They scrutinized his portfolio from top to bottom, and they finally hired him after a lot of deliberation. And he came in training with one girl, and she was white. And he was like, "Well, how was your interview process?" And she was like, "Well, I had one meeting with the manager. We chatted and we laughed, and she gave me the job." And he was like,
Yeah.
"What? I have
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
through hell to get this." And
Yeah.
yeah, but then if we make a mistake, that we lose it faster. So if there's a lot less redemption for
Yeah.
people of color if they mess up, like with NCAA football, like a white coach can act a fool, do whatever he wants, can hire prostitutes like Hugh Freeze, who was the coach at Ole Miss, and then he coached at Liberty of all places after hiring prostitutes, and then just got a job at Auburn. But a black coach, if they lose their opportunity, they're done. Like they don't
Yeah.
get any other chances. So I yeah, but that's I mean that's how it is. That's culture, and
Yeah.
unfortunately we don't have enough power to change it. But
We're
we have
trying.
we,
I hope. I don't know. I hope it's changing slowly.
mm,
Yeah.
well, I think being African American, I feel like well, I mean, this is off topic, but there's a lot of internal frustration, just to be honest with you. I have these conversations with my friends a lot. We have a lot of internal frustrations with each other.
Yeah.
So, like people like Kanye and Candace, when they get into the big house, because we call it the big, when you get into the big house, of course, you want to do whatever you can to stay there. So they will, like Uncle Ruckus and Boondocks, just kind of cut down any African Americans in order to gain the approval of
Right.
whites. And it works, and it keeps them in the big house, and the big house is a lot more comfortable than the fields. So I
Yeah.
just,
I feel you. I feel it does. In a lot of ways, and a lot of the things that I won't speak for your experience, but in a lot of the things we're fighting for that, especially like on the queer side and doing stuff for trans rights and stuff,
oh
it
yeah,
does feel like the fascists are starting to win. Like it's like we're trying. Hopefully, it's getting better, but sometimes it really feels like it's getting worse in a lot
it
of
does.
places in a lot of ways. And yeah,
I
it
just,
must be frustrating to have. I know it's like you brought up like Candace and Kanye. I know trans people. Blair White right now
oh, Blair
is the
White.
person that is getting the loudest microphone and the most
She's always
ears.
been though, right? I mean, she is kind of the only. And like I guess Caitlyn Jenner might be the
Right. And
other.
she's also awful, also
Yeah,
conservative.
right,
It's like it
right.
was wild trying to watch Caitlyn Jenner explain to Ellen the fact that she doesn't believe in gay marriage. Like that was fucking crazy. You haven't seen that interview?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. No.
Oh, it's
Oh, she told Ellen that
wild.
on Ellen's
Yeah, yeah.
show?
Yeah. She was like explaining it to Ellen, and it's just like you are a nonsense human being. And so
She is a nonsense human. Well, her whole family is nonsense, but
it shows how the sensationalism is more popular than actually having a person who's like well spoken, well versed on the science, well versed on the diversity within each community. Because obviously,
mhm.
like even if you could then get someone who isn't Kanye and Candace for your community, or in the case like Blair White, or in my case years ago it was Milo was representing all gay men somehow.
Oh,
He was the
yeah,
loudest.
Milo.
Right, he was the
Wow. They
loudest gay
ran him out
voice.
too. Yeah.
Thank goodness. And
Yeah.
now he's trying to be the poster boy for conversion therapy. But it's tough too then
Wait,
when it's
what?
like, oh yeah, he's pro conversion therapy because
I
he
thought he
believes
just got married and was living his life.
no. Oh man, you've somehow missed a ton. He was
I
writing with
have.
Kanye until Kanye fired him a couple of weeks ago.
Weeks.
Yeah. Did you see Kanye go on Tim Pool's show, the episode where like Kanye is like, but who's they? And Tim Pool's like, I'm not going to say they is the Jews. And so, and I don't, so that's not me saying Tim Pool's a good guy.
Oh,
Tim Pool's a piece of
wasn't it?
shit, but at least he's not an
Oh
anti-Semite.
yeah. Yeah,
Kanye gets up and he leaves, and Nick Fuentes is like, well, yeah, we should talk about the they. But then you hear another voice that's like, hey, I've got to go and check on him and make sure that he's okay. That was Milo.
I
Milo
didn't know
was
all these
riding with
people were
Kanye.
so intertwined with each other. Like I just
Yeah,
did
yeah.
not know that.
Yeah, he's he and his, I don't remember if they got married or not, but so we'll say quote unquote ex, they still live together, but no longer in sin. Just as
Is that a quote? Please tell me that's a
supposedly.
quote. No
I don't think
longer
he
sin.
I don't think that's the way he phrased it, but that's what he said, is that they're now, like platonic partners. He still like cares and loves them, and so he still takes care of them, but he's been cured of his gayness because of his conversion therapy, and now he's trying to become, he literally said he wants to be the poster boy for conversion therapy that works, because conversion therapy gets a bad rap. But the whole point of this being like, these representatives of our communities get chosen for us.
Yeah.
And then it's literally like, cool. So you think just a gay guy will do? And I'm sure you feel this way, where it's like, you finally let somebody in who isn't totally awful. And you think that even if you let someone in that's not totally awful, that's still not enough. One person does not represent the entire diversity of thought of a community. And so
no, but being token is, okay, you're right. But we even know that there's only a few spots available. So we compete with each other in order to get those spots. Yeah. And like, there's this, have you ever seen Boondocks? It's a hilarious show.
Oh yeah. So I also used to be a young atheist libertarian who thought free speech absolutism was the most important thing. And so not only did I watch Boondocks, I used to uncensored quote Boondocks a lot before I stopped being such an insufferable little piece of shit.
That is so funny. Well, there's Boondocks and also the Key and Peele show.
I love Key and Peele.
They did an episode with a black guy who had a group of white friends, and then another black guy came in and they were competing with each other.
Right. The a cappella singing group. Yeah.
Yes, that's real.
Yeah.
That's real. Because there's only a few spots. There's only a few spots in the house, and the one you want to get that you do, because you can't trust like your own community to support you, because we can't support ourselves. You can't trust, and this is statistically demonstrated. I'm not being biased. This is unfortunately something that my friends and I we talk about a lot. But people talk about the Black community coming together and us doing stuff together and progressing, and we don't trust each other enough to do that. We trust the people who own the fields to do it, and the people who own the houses to do it. So we work for them, and we will step on each other's toes and push each other down to get those benefits. So it's very different, I guess, with us, because at least with other communities, they do seem to be a lot more cohesive, but with us, it's really not that. And this is from living in the community, growing in the community, hearing my father say incredible things, like when we would be calling a company for customer service, if a Black person picked up the phone, he would be like, nope, click, and would call back until he got a white person. Like, these are things that we do to each other. So it's not helping us.
It reminds me of a discussion I was having recently with this is going to sound like I'm trying to be like one of those insufferable activist level, but I was speaking with a group of feminists and we were talking about the very real barrier to feministic advancement that is not literally, not directly, indirectly, yes, but not directly the patriarchy saying, fuck you, stay down there. One of the biggest problems toward feministic advancement is even amongst feminists that women are programmed basically to hate other women.
Well, we're competing for the best males, the best resources. So,
and it's funny because I shared something I had observed, and I love when you share something you observe and people are like, I never thought of it that way. Holy shit. It's so validating to do. But the observation I made is like, look at the fucking way we grow up. If you're a cis white guy in society, or this was mostly just talking about men versus women, and the way these dynamics, men versus other men versus other women, men compete, but they also team up. And
yes,
like we
that's what
grew,
they evolved to do, and chimpanzees are very good at this.
but socially, we grew up with role models and examples of men we should be like. That's like the primary way you develop. Now, the problem
Not
is
black
they
men,
keep telling us,
but
right, not black men, and usually not good men either. It's like Jordan Peterson is currently what a lot of men are telling their sons to be more like, or there's a large
of course.
bevy of men seek out other men to be role models. So that's also why you have this problem with TikTok boys looking up to Andrew Tate and other assholes, Joe Rogan,
The red
and
pill
the like.
movement.
But these men who like seem to represent masculinity, and you know they get girls, and but you are taught to have community and team up. But at the very core, like the way I worded it was, men are taught which men to model themselves after, which men to be like, which men. Women are raised taught which women to not be like.
That's true. That's a good point.
You're not raised as much with like, hey, you know, of course everybody hears, I feel like, the story amongst, maybe this is more amongst white families. I don't know if black families talk about Susan B. Anthony. You can tell me or not, but that's like the one white woman I can remember ever being like, here's a role model for the women, Susan B. Anthony. And then within Mormonism, Emma Smith. But then beyond that, it's not about which women you should be. It's about which women you shouldn't be. Don't be a slut like Miley Cyrus. Don't be a slut like so-and-so, so-and-so. Don't dress like a whore. Don't act like a whore. It's all of these demeaning descriptions and then tied to. And so you're going around not looking for people to model yourself after, but people to not ever be like. And there's no wonder that it's like, now, when you meet a woman, you're judging her according to the checklist of things not to be, whereas a man meets another man and we're going against a checklist of things to be. So we'll let go that a guy has whatever negative quality if he's got three or four of these other positive qualities that we've been taught to look for.
Yeah. I've never thought, that's a very good point. I've never thought of it that way. That might also have to do with why I don't have a lot of women, like female role models. Someone asked me that. And also too, why I may not have a lot of I don't know if I have any black role models, because we are also taught, don't act like this black person, you're not going to get the job. Don't name your kid this, you're not going to get the job. Don't wear your hair like this. Don't interact with white people like this. Don't wear these types of clothes. Don't do this. Don't do this. You're not going to get the job. You're not going to be approved of by them. They're the ones that pay. They're the ones that are going to give you the things you need. So we look at each other like, well, if I associate with you, like we have this joke that if we're in the room together and there's like a few of us, we have to stay apart, because if we start grouping together, it'll look suspicious.
I think there's a Key and Peele. I feel like there's a Key and Peele sketch on that very same topic too, but I'm trying to remember what it was.
It probably is. They're even though they're both married to white women, I find that funny. I don't care at all. Actually, Black women are the least likely to marry outside of their race, but Black men are the most likely to marry outside of their race when they achieve a certain level of socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
And I think Black women should be more open to marrying outside of their race, just because we're the least likely to do it. And I mean, we don't have as many options to choose from, unfortunately, because of, well, I learned that 50% of Black men don't graduate high school. I didn't know that. I don't know any Black men who haven't graduated high school, but I think that might just be my family and our value of education.
Sure.
I've never, but my brother, we talk a lot about this because he's gay, but he does not date a lot of Black men. But it also has a lot to do with, like, he's very not that Black men aren't educated, but statistically less. But we also grew up in a white neighborhood, white schools, white churches, white everything. So,
right.
But if I was straight, I mean, I would date white men.
and when you are attracted to like certain groups of people, all of media and society has presented that the ideal and intelligent person looks like X.
Oh yeah.
And so you start, if you're
Absolutely.
attracted to intelligence, you start looking for the physical representations of what you associate with, even though that actually has no actual causal correlation, the correlating causal effect. Fuck, I think I said that in reverse, but it's not actually related. But you go with like what society and media has represented as. It's just like why we were all somehow. In 2005, I was looking back at like old music videos where I was like, man, I used to think so and so was so hot, and just our body types, who we are attracted
Oh
to
my
body
gosh.
type wise has changed so dramatically
much.
since
Yes.
2005. I feel like almost everyone that I thought was like the hottest in 2005, now I recognize like, oh, cool. At 15 years old, I had been conditioned to be attracted to eating disorders. Because
Oh,
it's like,
Paris Hilton.
yeah,
Like she would not fly as attractive today. She's too thin. I mean, like,
yeah,
because the models today is Cardi B, Kim Kardashian, like thick, heavy women. So yeah,
good.
Brittany.
I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah, I
I
know,
get it.
right? You're
And who
firm as
knows,
well.
maybe 15 years from now, I'll be looking back and be like, can't believe I was so attracted to Nicki Minaj, who's a goddess to me.
She was a little too fake for
I'm not
me.
going to talk about her personality. She's just so attractive.
Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, I love her.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I like her attitude. I like that attitude of she has a very work hard, focused attitude, which obviously she's successful. So
But maybe like 15 years from now, it'll be like, now I've been conditioned to be attracted to people who have had leg extensions and are 7 feet tall. I don't know what 15 years from now
probably
it's going to
people
be.
who are 400 pounds because our societies, yeah, that's what's. I mean, not
Yeah,
well.
that's one of those.
Tests, tests holidays. Like you can't say health is important anymore. Okay,
This is a very forbidden topic. I'm literally
yes,
actively
very
losing weight right
forbidden.
now because I got
Same. I gained all my
heavier.
weight, like half my weight back. So
I got like heavier and sicker because of heavier than I've ever been. And I'm
yeah,
sitting here like, I kind of bought into a lot of, there's got to be a middle ground. Of course we should have you don't get to bully fat people for being
no,
fat.
that's not the point.
Definitely that
Health is
shouldn't be allowed.
important.
But I definitely like, I remember the first time I started doing it, I was like, I'm going to share my journey on Twitter. And I was like, hey, I've been doing this for this long. I'm down 10 pounds. And,
You
I
fat
just want to
phobic
celebrate that.
motherfucker.
Yeah, I got attacked for it. And I was like, you all realize that, like, I get it. Not all weight loss is healthy, but like, Jesus Christ, it is for me right now. And I'm
I
not
was
losing it in an unhealthy way.
345 pounds. Okay.
Wow.
345. I got
Yeah,
down. I've gained like 20, 30 pounds back because I stopped drinking and smoking.
sure.
And I'm going back. I mean, like I've gained a little bit back, or like quite a bit back actually, but I've still lost over 100 pounds. I feel so much
That's
better. And like,
amazing. Yeah,
I can't imagine if I had COVID at 345.
right.
Like I was able to recover better. And even if I had still been smoking and drinking, how this past week would have gone. But imagine I was 345, still smoking, still drinking, still eating like a crazy person.
Yeah.
I probably would have been in the hospital. Like
It's one
it's
of those things where it's
wild.
like, if somebody, why is it jump to an attack? Why is there never a question first? Why
Or
is it
hey,
never
well
like,
done. Like
hey,
on
yeah,
saving your life.
I feel like this is the problem I have with vegans too, where I'm like, okay, you're right. I haven't cut out all animal products, but you've never asked me how much I do. Like, you've never asked me not just what I don't eat, but how I've reduced my harm to animals overall. Because I actually suspect my contribution to the environmental crisis is less than a lot of yours. Despite the fact that I still eat mostly it's chicken. It's mostly chicken that I still eat. And I know somebody's like, well, there you just disregard. And I was like, yeah, but you got your fucking cantaloupes brought in by plane, you fucking asshole. Do you know how many people you fucking killed? I'm eating locally grown chicken, you douche.
Hey, at least you're doing that. I just buy steak. Listen, if I could live off of ribeye steak
Yeah.
and it not destroy as one day I caught myself eating steak every day one week and I was like, you're not supposed to eat like this.
Yeah, not unless you're on Joe Rogan's diet. It's just my whole thing is
yeah.
like, how is there never a question? If you just say you lose weight, why is it if you're worried about that, if you hear that you're like losing weight, why is there never like a question like, oh, what are your goals? Like, what is going on? Because for me, every time I start dieting, it's that my apnea got so worse that I think I like died twice while I was sleeping. Maybe not literally, but literally like my sleep apnea got so bad that I would have a dream that I'm underwater. And then I would realize after the reason I was having that dream is I could not breathe. No, it is funny. I meant it to be funny. I meant it to be funny, but I couldn't breathe in my sleep. And I have this dream where I'm like underwater and like, oh my God, I'm not going to reach the surface before I need this breath super bad. And then I end up breathing in underwater, but somehow not drowning. And then I wake up and people who ever sleep next to me, they're like, it is terrifying to sleep next to you. You sound like you are going to die. First, you'll be like, and then suddenly you'll stop and you'll just go, no, it is funny.
I'm sorry.
I have a way of
almost dying in his sleep, and I'm rolling.
I have a way of telling stories that, again, laughter very validating. Much like I never thought about that way. These are the two things that validate me the most. Is anyway. But people sleep next to me, they'll be like,
when I'm laughing like really heavy. You were so funny.
They'll be like, you'll be sleeping and you'll be like, and then suddenly you'll stop and it'll just be silent, and then like it'll be silent for too long, and I go, oh fuck, did he die? Like, do I need to wake him up? Do I need to start chest compressions? And then suddenly you'll go, and I do that, and sometimes I don't wake up when I do it. I just and they're like, it's terrifying to sleep next to you.
Oh Lord. Oh God.
And sleep apnea, the only known like cure that isn't putting on a big face mask, the only way to like change yourself so you don't have to rely on putting on a fucking Darth Vader apparatus every night
is weight loss.
Is weight loss. That's like it's what caused sleep apnea is probably rapid weight gain, especially because it's a certain area that I believe it's a certain area that there's too much tissue now.
The only adiposity.
It's what causes it for over 90% of people who have sleep apnea, and it's what fucking cures it for those same people.
You are so funny. It's the way my ex had sleep apnea, so I know it's not funny, but you.
please come to every stage show I ever do. Just,
well, you're funny. Do you do comedy?
It's more of it will become that, but right now some of the stuff that I've been exploring and fucking with is more of just like talking to people live in a sort of stage situation, and then like being funny at times, but also just telling stories. I was talking to some people recently, and I was like, "Hey, what do you all do for a living?"
Keep laughing.
I was talking to people recently and asked them what they do for a living, and people were like, "Oh, I do this, I do this, I do this." And I was like, "Guess what I do for a living?" People call me, and they tell me that God's real, and I go, "Probably not." And that's what I do for a living. That's my job.
That's my dream job, dude.
It's fucking absurd. You ever try and explain being a professional atheist to people? It just sounds ridiculous.
It does. When people are like, what do you do? I was like, well, I'm kind of getting into my dream job. And I'm like, I want to debate, converse, be a public speaker. I'm like, I can't nail it down. I really can't.
Yeah. But I hate saying I'm a YouTuber because I feel like that has such a associate, and granted, like in the future, we're looking to expand out and be at more places and available in more forms and stuff. And we're trying to build that up. But like, if I say a YouTuber, like what 90% of people think is like I'm on fucking TV and I'm like, hey everybody, what's going on? Jimmy here. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe, and remember, if we hit 500 likes, next week I'm going to start this thing by taking a shot of sriracha. All right, guys. Today, what I have for you is I'm going to be trying out this packet of Parmesan cheese. Now, I usually like some Kraft Parmesan cheese, but people were telling me about these packets by Luigi. And so I'm just going to make up a pizza, come along for the ride. But before we get started, did you know I dropped some new merch? And here's my Skillshare sponsorship. A doopy 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 doo. 9 minutes later. All right, let's try this fucker. That's what people think when you say, I know I had a very long example and I was a little too good at it.
Yeah. But it is like, That's
it's
funny.
And so like I'm not like the word influencer is also what do you do for a living? I'm an influencer. Some people say that with pride. They're like, I put on shoes and other people buy them because I
And
put them on.
they get a lot of money for that, though. They
I
get
know
paid a
way
lot
more
of
than we're
money.
ever gonna make doing this bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
that's
way
wild.
more, way more.
You're like a slutty 20-year-old. You could be a millionaire in like a week.
Nikki, I know a few of these influencers. They're making way more than we will ever make as atheists on YouTube.
Well,
Like
listen, I'm gonna find a way to. I don't know. Maybe I'll open up a strip club. I'm not sure, but we're gonna make it happen.
one of them, we were talking, I was like, what did you get for this like Instagram sponsorship? And I'm not kidding. They said a number that was roughly half of what my YouTube channel makes in a year for a single Instagram post.
What?
I know.
Oh my gosh!
It's fucking nonsense.
That is nonsense. Yeah,
And so
you're
for a
wrong.
living, I wear things and tell other people to buy them. And then I just get to go on vacation all the time.
That's
like
true.
fucking fuck you, you lucky sack of shit.
Well, you just gotta like, I guess, get a bunch of. Well, now because we're not like in our 30 or 20s anymore, in our teens. There was a time when I was tight, but not anymore. So I'm just gonna lose
I
100
was just
pounds and get a bunch of surgery and.
I was to say I am hundreds of surgeries away from being able to pull off anything like that. And some of the technology has not yet been invented to make this look like Timothy Chalamet. It ain't happening. And I'd have to give up my beard, which is a hard no.
You don't have to give up your beard. I think your beard would be.
Name one successful bearded influencer. I'll wait. Yeah, right? Isn't that sort of fucked up?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan never, like, rarely has a beard, but Joe Rogan is more, I'm talking like the people who literally just are famous for being famous. I am not a Joe Rogan fan, but Joe Rogan is a successful and competent comedian. He's actually very funny when he's not just attacking people who he doesn't understand. And when he's not, but like there's lots of his stand-ups and very funny. He's a very animated person. So I would call him more like a comedian, and then he's a successful podcaster. Again, not my guy, but I wouldn't say like, and you know, if he puts on a pair of sunglasses and does some stupid caption like "Be yourself, everyone else is taken, 15% off aviators when you use my code at checkout." That's not what pays his bills. I'm talking about the people who are
influencer,
literally famous for being good looking, like famous for being. I'm not trying to degrade that. I understand they do work, and that 8 hours a year, they work hard.
I mean, being attractive does take work. It does.
Sure.
You have to watch what you eat. You have to take good care of your body. You have to exercise. Yep. I mean, it is work. I mean, who hasn't put in that work, but also put in the work to lose the weight, but then is gaining a lot of it back, and then has to put in the work to lose it again. So,
but I just feel like those people that are like, this is a lot of hard work. I'm like, try going being ugly and get a job at Walmart and tell me how hard this work is still. Like even I put in 70 to 80 hours of work for the YouTube channel, of the YouTube channels each week. Like I'm working a double full-time job,
of course.
But
yeah. It's work.
I'm working for myself. I would take that over working a 40-hour a week. Like back at, I used to work and so I can say like my job is harder now, but the amount of satisfaction I get it is through the roof way better. And so it doesn't feel harder. Like I
agree.
The lows, there are still lows and those suck. But like if I had to go back and work at Verizon, just like say something, give a really nice eulogy is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Let me just put it that way.
I am currently, unfortunately, still in the job market myself, and I'm not anywhere where I need to be. I know I'm not where I need to be in order to. I'm just getting started doing this, but
yeah,
I'm not anywhere where I need to be in order to stop doing it full time, or start doing it full time. But yeah, it's wild. But
and specifically, I'm saying like if you're out there working, there are jobs in the job market that are very satisfying. I feel like if tomorrow they were just like, hey, YouTube died, you got to go find a job. I'd either start my own wood shop because I already have a shit ton of it, or I'd go an apprentice for a wood person, and I'd be like, and I'd probably be pretty happy.
Well,
And
yeah.
I'd love that. In fact, being a cowboy was kind of awesome.
I was gonna say that's wild.
But I will drink cyanide before I work for Verizon again. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I probably will. Yeah,
I ain't selling TVs at Sears either.
Well, luckily, the Sears are probably all closed, so you probably have to work at Best Buy then.
I probably did that. I really, when I worked at Sears, I was real lazy. I probably cost them too much money, and that's why they broke up. I know that's impossible to be true.
I'm sure that their decision making is not. Yeah.
Even at the Sears I worked at, I couldn't have made the difference, but I like to tell myself it made the difference nationwide, and that you're looking at the reason why Sears died. You're welcome.
Did you work for Blockbuster in Circuit City too?
No, I never worked there. I've worked for 3 of the major cell phone carriers. And then in college I worked in a lab. I won't talk much about that because I'll talk about it with you off air. But I worked in a lab. It's just sort of stuff that I think makes a lot of people squeamish. Same reason why I don't do shows where I'm just like, hey, here's a bunch of spiders, because there's so many arachnophobes out there. Anyway, then I've also so before I became a YouTuber, I had I want to say that it was doing pretty good, but more that I was on a path to having a very successful photography studio and doing commercial photography. And things were taking off to the point that when my YouTube channel blew up, I had to choose between the two. I was like, fuck, I have this over here that it's a little bit more built up, and I bet it's longer. It'll be sustainable longer. Or I could do YouTube, which is real exciting. And I opted for the more exciting option.
Of course.
It was a mistake. No, I'm kidding. I'm glad I did it. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, you've inspired me and a lot of people. Yeah. And I appreciate that.
I'll sign over the whole company to you tonight then.
Oh,
it's yours. Run it all. Deal with it.
I was going to say its demise would be impending because I wouldn't know how to.
I'm excited for the future, but I guess the depressing news for anybody who's about to discover me by listening to your podcast is the future is me melting into the background. I'm going to get more and more behind production and less in front of the camera.
Well, if you need anybody in front of the camera, I'm always available.
Oh, you know it.
Your show is incredible.
I can't tell you who yet until they tell me to officially schedule it, but I'll tell you that your name has, since your appearance, come up amongst other hosts on the channel.
Oh,
people very much liked you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to. I had a lot of fun with Arden. I really appreciate her coming on my show. And
Emmanuel really liked you.
Oh, what happened with that? What?
That's the funniest fucking story. Oh, fuck. You got to go soon. Okay. I'll give you the quick version. So Emmanuel is this person who calls the line every show except for Transatlantic Call-In Show. We'll call every show and be like, I'm just calling to say that the Bible is totally reasonable and the blah, 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 blah. And then calls
reasonable as well.
Calls Nikki and I and first asks Nikki if he qualifies as black, which I'm still wondering about that interaction where I'm like, there's something he didn't share. Right? Because how would you say you're from Ethiopia and have brown skin and wonder if you're considered, and now you're in America, whether you would be an African American or whether you'd be considered black? And so I was very confused by that.
A lot of Africans, and my sister married a guy from Uganda. That's a whole nother story. But a lot of Africans, and this is a general statement, and I've spoken to some who feel this way, try to separate themselves from African Americans because of the stigma.
Sure.
And so I can maybe see that might be his logic, but I don't know.
He didn't want to know if he was African American. He wanted to know if he is considered black, which sounds like something like a douchey Italian person would ask. You know what I mean? Well, would you consider me? No.
That's so funny.
No, I would not. Anyway, it was this really weird interaction where it began. And I almost want like, hey, Emmanuel, send a photo because I just feel like it's gonna look like Polly from Jersey Shore or something. Anyway, but then he started defending as a person from apparently Ethiopia, now in Texas, which he says every time. I'm not doxing him. It says on our little call thing. Now in Texas, starts defending slavery to Nikki, and that it is sometimes
slaves.
That it is sometimes a good thing. Like, for example, if when Jews would enslave non-believers in the Old Testament, like in that scenario, slavery was a good thing, and sometimes it's a good thing, slavery. And so I basically was like, if you can't understand that that's wrong because you wouldn't want to be enslaved, I don't know how to explain it to you, so bye.
Yeah, it's very weird. But he would be a Muslim slave, though. He said that. Right.
And he would follow the Bible's directions on being a good slave, even though in that scenario, where the fuck would you have gotten a Bible? Anyway.
I didn't even think about that. Good point.
Yeah. If I was a Muslim slave, I'd follow what the Old and New Testament said about being a slave and be a good one. It's like, how would you have known that the Bible said that? Anyway,
I didn't even think about that.
Then he calls on Sunday, and Matt's like, "What do you want?" And he goes, "I just want to start by saying."
He called to talk to Matt.
Yeah. Because Matt had already basically said, "I'm done with you," but Matt was feeling generous, and so he calls in and says to Matt, "I just want to start by saying Jimmy Snow has ruined my life." And Matt hung up on him for saying that. And he goes, "Well, now I ruined your Sunday." And so then the next day he calls back John, Godless Engineer, and David Warnock, who are doing an episode about mythicism. I interrupted the call and I was like, "How the hell did I ruin your life?" He goes, "Oh, it was a joke, but you ruined my life because you introduced me to Nikki, and I've been watching her channel, and she's so pretty that I've become obsessed with her." And I'm like, I forgot to at that point to mention. I was like, "Oh, got you. I ruined your life because you're creepy." I said something along those lines, but I forgot to also mention, like, you picked up she's gay, right? Like, you're exclusively not her type, right?
Well, there is one person. There is one, but it's not a man.
Oh, you got well, everybody's got their one exception. Even straight men have their gay exception, which
yeah, of course.
I have news for you, straight men.
Who is yours?
Well, I'm not straight.
Well,
so I have tons.
Oh, that's right. That's true. I'm sorry. Well, okay.
My straight exception is most twinks.
You're coming back on this show, right?
Of course I will. I'm happy to.
You are coming back.
I feel unleashed when I go on other shows. It's like, you invited me here. You can't. If you know that I show up to parties and take a shit on the floor and you invite me to your party, I'm going to take a shit on the floor. That's what I feel you've done here.
Shit on the floor, Jimmy.
You've invited me in to take a shit on the floor. I really classed down the place.
No, having you is awesome. Oh,
thank you.
You're funny as hell.
It's all I care about being is funny, and that's the worst part. Is I don't feel like I get to do it on air much because I'm always taking on heavy topics. Someone will call in and be like, "Hey, did you hear about those 9 people that died because of this and this?" And I'm like, "Cool. Let me just crack a joke about that." Yeah, there's no. The topics are always so heavy and serious. You're like, I'll get vamped up and I'll be like, "All right, I'm going to be good and entertaining." First caller, we're talking to Tom in Florida. "Hey guys,
Florida, that's your first.
My grandma just died, and I was wondering how I should deal with that as an atheist." I'm like, "All right, I'm not going to use the air horn sound effect today, I guess. Just turn that off right now."
Where did you get into the microphone like that?
Oh, I was trying to sound like a phone call. "Hey guys, hi guys." And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody I'm not saying of course, call. If you're having trouble and I invite you to call and I'll help you through it, of course. But could somebody set me up once or twice for a punchline? My God.
That is hilarious. Oh my God. You're so funny. I hate. Oh my god, I really hate that we have to get off because I have to jump on like 10 to 15 minutes early for this.
Mhm.
Have you ever done a formal debate?
Uh, kind of. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't think, and I don't mean this in a degrading way to what you're about to do. I don't think YouTube debates are formal debates. Uh, so
You know,
I've
it's like
done
all Matt does now, though, because of like the COVID and everything.
right, and granted, there was an exception for COVID, and so you have to look at some things and go. However, Matt recently went to a convention and did like for audiences and
Oh,
stuff.
debate con, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like none of you can almost always tell whether this is a real thing or not by whether or not the moderator seems like they're winging it. That's a big part of it. But I did a
This
couple
guy.
of smaller debates with a channel that was doing debates, but the channel was like, first of all, is a garbage channel, and I acknowledge that now. But they were like, they were only ever interested in setting up dumpster fires. And I feel
Oh,
like that so represents so much of online debating that basically YouTube came along and they were like, oh my God, look at what Christopher Hitchens used to do. Look at what, Dawkins used to do. Look at what this person and this person. And oh, one of my favorite events was this debate between, Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Fry versus these two people representing the Catholic Church. One of the
wow.
greatest debates of all time. And people were like, you
Yeah,
know what? With YouTube, I can cosplay some shit like that.
yeah, that's
And
true.
then it's there. I feel that debate has been ruined by something I actively participate in. I have no respect for the online debate concept. Like,
I wonder
but I
how I
do
could.
it. I do it. So
I
it's,
want to get into actual face-to-face things. I mean, well,
yeah,
actually, being that I have COVID currently, I am grateful for the opportunity to debate online, but I do want to do it off. I want to get into lectures and all that other stuff
sure.
too. But this is the first
Again,
time I've ever done anything.
my respect for you won't go down because it's something not only that I actively participate in, we're planning to launch debates of some type on the line at some point as well.
Oh, cool.
I just feel like it's like it's like pretending high school football is good.
It can be if you're Texas, and the South. I'm from the South. It's pretty hardcore.
It's like you're looking at the Super Bowl and you're like, I can do that. And then you go and you fight against a bunch of high schoolers. I don't know.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like I think all football's awful. So this was a terrible metaphor. I just not
Well, after this
interesting.
past week, wait, isn't that wait? Okay, first of all, football is like American football is the best sport
I'm
ever.
just not interested at all. But I'll
This
play you in it.
guy.
I'll play a hefty game of badminton, but I'm not excited to watch sports almost ever.
Oh
Um,
shit, some sports, man. I think I'm a dude. Actually, I've been told that a million times. So yeah, I probably am.
You're like,
I love
but again,
football.
I can out masculine most of the like Nick Adams, who thinks he's the alpha male on Twitter. I can make that guy look like a little.
He's alpha. We really do need to keep like seriously. My brother and I had this conversation today, but I could talk to you forever.
Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go.
We definitely got to do this again. But
Yeah,
thank you so much for coming on the show. I really hope to have you on again very soon.
I'd be happy
And
to
yes, please. And if you could just let everyone know where to find you and tell us about your shows and everything.
find the line. If you want to find me, I'm behind the Home Depot. I don't know. Don't find the line. Find the shows we do. The YouTube channel is called The Line. I'm the producer over there. If you really want to see how I make ergonomic furniture for ferrets, you can plug Jimmy Snow into YouTube. But fucking, I can't even promise I'll ever post there ever again. I mean, I will, but find me at Home Depot or Lowe's. Find me in the
Thank you,
wood
Jimmy.
aisle. Yeah.
Thank you, That sounds like a euphemism. Thank you, Jimmy.
I legitimately am a woodworker on the side.
I
It's what I
know.
do to make my to enjoy my
I've
time.
been in the wood aisle recently. Well, like in
Yeah.
the last 6 months to get these horrible shelves that are warped. But okay. Yes. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for being on the show. Thank you, everyone, for watching the Beat the Cult, quote unquote, podcast. I will be moving towards a more formal podcast format as things progress. But you can find me on Twitter predominantly. I also have an Instagram, Beat the Cult, but I don't use it as much as I should. And of course, YouTube at Beat the Cult. And I will be. I did start a Patreon, but it's not quite formal yet. And I do have a store that I'll be launching soon as well. There was already a page, but I don't have customer service and I'm too lazy to do it myself. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again, Jimmy, for coming on the show. And I will see you all next time.
Oh, it's my apnea again. Sorry.